Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the MLB DFS Core Pick video for Friday, July 18th, if you're joining me for the very first time. First of all, welcome in. Second of all, this is how today's video will be structured. We'll be going through my core picks. It's going to be 5 players in total, 1 pitcher, 4 hitters. It's going to be based on a combination of past performance versus their respective opponent, as well as some recent history. Obviously, the recent history a little bit further pushed back since we did have the All-Star break, but we'll be looking into the recent games of these players just in general at the same time as well. And then after that, we'll get moved over to my cheat sheet and talk about my top GPP teams to stack for Friday's slate overall. And then in the morning, I'll be listing my early morning weather report that will have any game that does have a double-digit chance of rain or higher. And then I will also be listing as many of these starting lineups as I can get to throughout the afternoon and early evening down in that comment section. So definitely make sure that you are checking up down there so that you do have the most up-to-date and relevant information as possible, especially as we do head into lock. But without further ado, we're going to get right into the core picks. We're going to start off with that pitcher position. We're going to go with Seth Lugo of the Kansas City Royals. $9,700. He's averaging just over 32.5 fantasy points per game on the season. Goes against the Miami Marlins. Should be a pretty attractive matchup for him just in general. And he has good but limited history versus these Miami Marlin hitters in the past. Not too long of a sample size there, but he did pitch against them in 2024. He had 46 points in that start. And if we look at what he's done so far in this season, 6 wins, 267 ERA. Once again, averaging over 32.5 fantasy points per game at $9,700. Then we're going to move down to our hitters. We're going to start off with second baseman Marcus Semien. He's at $3,000, averaging just under 9.5 fantasy points per game on the season. Goes against the Detroit Tigers, and Reese Olson is the expected starting pitcher for them. And in his career versus Reese Olson, he is 3 for 6 with 1 home run. If we look at what Marcus Semien has done as of late, he's got at least 1 hit in 4 out of his last 5 games. 2 multi-hit games during that time span, 3 home runs, and all 4 of the games that he does have at least 1 hit in have been double-digit performances. So he's been playing really well as of late. Do like his upside. Really respectable price tag at $3,000. And if we look at what he's done so far in the season, .239 batting average, 12 home runs, 50 RBIs. Once again, averaging just under 9.5 fantasy points per game at $3,000. Then we move down to third base with Jordan Westburg. He is also $3,000, averaging just over 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He's going to go against the Tampa Bay Rays, and it is Taj Bradley as the expecting pitcher for that Tampa Bay Rays team. And in his career versus Taj Bradley, Jordan Westburg is 2 for 6 with 1 home run. He has at least 1 hit in 7 out of his last 9 games, 3 multi-hit games during that time span, 3 home runs, 4 double-digit performances, and 5 games of at least 9 fantasy points or higher. So he does offer a relatively safe floor. Obviously, the last 2 games that he's played in, he has failed to get a hit, but before that was on a really, really good hot streak. Would expect that to continue once again on Friday. And if we look at what he's done so far in the season, .251 batting average, 10 home runs, 21 RBIs. Once again, averaging over 10 fantasy points per game at $3,000. And then we move down to shortstop with his teammate Gunnar Henderson, $3,300, averaging over 10 fantasy points per game. And he is also going against Tampa Bay Rays and Taj Bradley on the mound. And in his career versus Taj Bradley is 7 for 17 with 1 home run, so some pretty good history there at that. He has at least 1 hit in 5 out of his last 6 games, 2 multi-hit games during that time span, 1 home run, and 4 double-digit performances. So he's been performing pretty well as of late. If we look at what he's done so far on the season in totality, .280 batting average, 11 home runs, 31 RBIs, once again averaging over 10 fantasy points per game at $3,300. And then last but not least, we're going to move down to the outfield with Jurickson Profar. He's $2,900, averaging over 10 fantasy points per game on the season. Goes against the New York Yankees. Max Fried is the expected starting pitcher for them. And Max Fried's pitched really, really well so far this season. Jurickson Profar is 3 for 8 versus him in his career. He's on a 5-game hitting streak. 2 multi-hit games during that time span. 1 home run. 4 double-digit performances in all 5 games have had at least 9 fantasy points or higher. So as a pay-down option, he looks pretty good. If you don't want to play him kind of as this one-off, I definitely do understand that with the success that Max Fried has had so far this year, although he's dealing with a little bit of a blister issue in his own right, but should be good for this start. And if we look at what Jurickson Profar has done so far on the season, .270 batting average, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, once again averaging over 10 fantasy points per game at $2,900. But with that being said, if you go with the 5 players that I do currently have listed here, you have $13,100 remaining, just under $3,300 remaining per player. So at least early on, looking a little bit more like a balanced build type of day, 11-game main slate. So definitely feel free to mix and match as you do see fit, especially when it comes to stacks. If you're playing in larger tournaments, obviously if you're playing in smaller tournaments, cash games, maybe you want to keep it a little bit simpler, but should be a very interesting slate overall. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to my cheat sheet and talk about my top GPP teams to stack for Friday's slate. So we're going to start off with the Kansas City Royals. They're going against Sandy Alcantara, who has not pitched well whatsoever this year. His ERA is up over 7.2 at this point in time. There's not a long list of history for this Royals team going against him, but feel free to mix and match guys that you do like from that Royals team. Jonathan India would be the guy that does have the most at-bats and success versus him in the past. And then we move over to the Baltimore Orioles going against Taj Bradley. Pretty much anybody on this Orioles team is going to look pretty good. Taj Bradley has not pitched well versus Baltimore, and he's been very, very hit or miss so far this season. And then we move over to the Detroit Tigers going against Patrick Corbin. Patrick Corbin's performed better than expected so far this year, but this Tigers team has hit him really well in the past. You know, whether that is Javier Baez, Spencer Torkelson, Gleyber Torres, Matt Verlaine, Zach McKinstry, you kind of name it at this point in time. A lot of those guys are going to look pretty good against him, and there are some value options versus him at the same time as well. And then last but not least, we have the Minnesota Twins going against Kyle Freeland. Games at Coors Field, so that's definitely going to help it out. And they don't have a ton of history versus Kyle Freeland in the past, but the guys that have faced him in the past have done pretty well, and he has not been very good so far this season. But with that being said, these are my core picks as well as top GPP teams to stack for Friday, July 18th. As always, if you have any questions related to MLB DFS, be sure to drop them down in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. And then once again in the morning, I'll be listing my early morning weather report. They'll have any game that does have a double-digit chance of rain or higher. And then I will also be posting as many of the starting lineups as I can get to throughout the afternoon and early evening. So definitely make sure you are checking out down in that comment section, especially as we do get closer to lock, so that you do have the most up-to-date and relevant information. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now we have MLB DFS in terms of the Core Picks video, which typically comes out Monday through Friday. Obviously, this week was a little bit different with the All-Star break happening. Nice little break there. Hopefully you guys were able to enjoy that. And then I do have my CFL DFS video coming out once a week. That typically comes out on Wednesdays, so definitely feel free to check that out if that's something you're interested in as well. And then last but not least, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for BetUS and Prize Picks. If you are a brand new user on either one of those sites, when you sign up, make your initial deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus. For Prize Picks, it's 100% match up to $100. And then for BetUS, it's 125% match up to $2,000. So some pretty great opportunities to be had out there. If you have any other additional questions related to that whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comment section of this video or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and would be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for today's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in MLB DFS for Friday, July 18th.